All right. My name is Nate. I'll call this Resource Conservation Commission meeting to order on Thursday, September 24th at 6:30. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think everyone in the commission is here besides Kim and Diane. They both have an excused absence. So welcome. Let's move on to number 2, public appearances for non-agenda items. Scott, is anybody there?
No one in the chamber, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. Moving on to 3, approval of the minutes. There was a copy of the minutes in the packet. Do we have a motion to approve those as submitted in the packet?
Nate, sorry to cut you off, but it looks like we skipped over appointment of the timekeeper.
I'm sorry. You're right. Let's back it up to 1A, appointment of the timekeeper, and on the agenda it says Kim.
Yeah, so the next person would be Chris, if Chris, you're willing.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
All right, that takes care of 1A. 2 is already taken care of. 3, approval of the minutes. A, draft minutes from the August 19th, 2020 meeting. That was included in the packet.
I move to approve the draft minutes. Second.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
We'll have Ron second, Gabriella motion. Okay. Discussion? Anyone have any comments, additional comments?
Nope, they look pretty good. Yep.
I skimmed them, and that's about it. But I thought they looked good too.
Always very thorough, so did it.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, if no one has any comments, we'll vote in favor of approving the minutes as included in the packet. Everyone approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. All righty, with that, we'll move to new business agenda items. 4A, we got a proposed USGS monitoring station on Swan Creek. We have a guest, I think we have a guest speaker here.
And if it's all right, I'll introduce him real quick.
That's what I was counting on. Thanks, Claudia.
All right, so we have Mike Rupiper here today from the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission to talk about a USGS monitoring station, which is proposed to be put on Swan Creek to monitor water quality, water quantity, those types of factors. It was originally planned to be put into the proposed operating budget, but I know that this was a tough budget cycle, and so it did not make it into the mayor's proposed operating budget. I believe the reasoning was that the mayor wanted us to make sure that we fully vetted all of the opportunities for potential cost sharing or grants. So that was the reasoning that I was given. But Mike is still here to talk about it, and there is the opportunity to put that in still if an alder wanted to put that in as a proposed amendment to the mayor's operating budget. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike Rupiper.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you for inviting me to come and talk to you tonight as part of your meeting. As Claudia said, I'm with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. I'm the Deputy Director there and the Director of Environmental Resources Planning. May have actually come across my name in some of the historical Fitchburg documents. I was the environmental engineer there 20 years ago. So I'm very familiar with Fitchburg and things around those parts. So do I have the ability to screen share here?
You should. It should be a green button near the bottom of your screen.
You see this okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So a little bit of background, because I'm not sure exactly how familiar all of your commission members are with this. You know, it goes back to actually one of the Fitchburg Northeast neighborhood urban service area map, which was around 2014, 2015 in that time frame. There was a lot of controversy surrounding it at the time, primarily due to concerns of potential impacts it could have on the Wabisa wetlands downstream. So Swan Creek flows into Wabisa wetlands on Lake Wabisa downstream of City of Fitchburg. Wabisa wetlands, if you don't know, is one of the highest quality wetlands that we have in Dane County. Considered a wetland gem at the state level, even one of the top 100 wetlands we have in the state. So, like I mentioned, there was a lot of concern among the environmental community and others about the potential effects that would have. And there was a lawsuit between the town of Dunn and the city of Fitchburg over development in the Northeast neighborhood. And the DNR ultimately approved it in part. And there was a whole series of conditions and things like that that went along with that. One of the outcomes of that was that CARPC, in conjunction with DNR, funded this study by the UW Water Resources Management Institute, part of the Nelson Institute, look at the Wabisa wetlands, look at potential for land use changes to have impacts, look at community engagement in the watershed. I believe they came and talked to the Resource Conservation Committee and presented at some point in time, but I'm not sure about that. So one of their recommendations as outcome of this report, and if you haven't had a chance to read it, I really recommend it, and we can provide you a link, hard copies even. But one of their recommendations was to include a long-term monitoring station operated by the USGS on Swan Creek. So the benefit of the monitoring station, obviously, is that it gives us a chance to collect some real data as to what's going on. Like I said, there's been a lot of controversy, even with the city of Fitchburg's recent urban service area amendment for Fahey South. This was a big topic of discussion. The commission staff recommended this as part of that approval. The commission felt it was so important that they actually moved it up to a condition of approval. But then DNR felt they didn't have the authority to require it as part of condition of approval. They still included it as a recommendation because they agree with the importance of having some monitoring on Swan Creek here and protecting the wetland, but they didn't feel like they had the legal authority to require it. But that's some of the background, just to give you an idea of the interest in this monitoring station. Like I said, the advantage is it'll give us some actual data, right? So we'll know if the stormwater controls and erosion controls are doing their job as we hope they are and expect they are. But if they're not, it will also give us data to show that that's, causing a problem, and gives us a chance to do adaptive management where we can go back then and make corrections and improve the flow of the water quality and quantity to Swan Creek. So whether you're on the side of concern about development on the wetlands or whether you think the development is going to do a good job, either way, this is going to provide some real data to support what's actually going on and help us make more informed decisions going forward. And obviously, there's a lot of potential future development within this watershed in the city yet to come in the future, potentially. I just wanted to talk about, in broader terms, the USGS monitoring program. So there's been some monitoring going on in the region by USGS for many decades now. We currently have some monitoring stations that the USGS operates on Pheasant Branch in the city of Middleton, and Middleton contributes funding to that. There's one by Spring Harbor Storm Sewer in the city of Madison. City of Madison contributes costs to that station. Dane County contributes a pretty significant portion to USGS monitoring program for lake levels and sites on the Yahara. All of that helps go to inform some of the efforts of phosphorus management in the Yahara chain of lakes and lake levels and all of those kind of things. So the program itself has been around for a long time. There's never been a monitoring station on Swan Creek or from the Fitchburg area, but I would like to see eventually, this station, if it's funded and installed, could become part of this permanent, long-term monitoring station, and could become part of this cooperative monitoring program rather than a standalone monitoring, which is kind of proposed as right now. But over the years, this has provided us a lot of useful data to use in our water resource management programs in the region. So here's just kind of an overview to show you. So Wabisa wetlands, of course, are down over here at the toe of Lake Wabisa. You can see Swan Creek kind of comes in through this way. Here's Lalor Road, which is where the monitoring station is proposed to be. That's the best road crossing, especially downstream of Fitchburg development. You can see some of the active development and construction going on here in the Terravessa part of the northeast neighborhood. As I mentioned, there's a lot of potential future development throughout this area in your comprehensive plan. And the Commission and DNR and many others feel it'd be very useful to have a monitoring station here at Swan Creek. So as far as the cost, USGS put together some cost estimates for it. Initial equipment and installation would be $15,000. USGS pays 25% of that. So the cost to the city would be 75% of that. That's what, around $11,000 for initial cost. Then on an annual basis, there's collection of the samples and analysis of the samples, maintenance of the monitoring equipment. That's estimated to cost about $20,000 a year. Again, USGS pays 25% of that. So the ongoing cost to the city of Fitchburg would be $15,000 a year for the monitoring station, which puts it right in the range of the costs that City of Madison, City of Middleton are paying to monitor some of their stormwater discharges from some of their communities that we talked about. So that's really kind of all I wanted to start with as an overview. Here's my contact information. I certainly hope people can reach out to me if they have questions, and I'm happy to have some discussion and questions now. I will say, as a commission, we were pretty disappointed to hear that it ultimately did not get included in the mayor's proposed budget. After we had heard that was likely to happen following the commission meeting. We received a letter from the city administrator saying it was expected to be put in the budget. I know our commission had some conversations with a couple of our commissioners this week and with the chair today, and the commission will be drafting a resolution, considering a resolution at their next meeting on October 8th. To encourage the city to make a budget amendment or whatever is necessary to try to get the funding put back in for this monitoring station. So I'd be interested in hearing, your thoughts and comments as a commission, and see if there's any questions that I might be able to answer.
This is Ron French speaking. I'm a stream volunteer for the Rock River Coalition, and actually I've been monitoring Swan Creek at Layla Road for the last 3.5 years. So I monitor it on a monthly basis from April through October. So I've been collecting data there as part of the Yahara Winds program. And so I'm very familiar with the site, and over the last 3.5 years, I've seen some changes occurring in the water quality in the stream. Just to give you a background, I'm an aquatic scientist, biologist, so I have a lot of experience doing sampling and stream monitoring and lake monitoring. One of the things I've noticed over the last couple of years, particularly during my sampling in August, when we had 3 weeks of no precipitation in the watershed, that when I say sediment load in the creek, and I'm not sure where creek, and it was causing a load that we use to measure transparency in the water body. So I was kind of surprised because we had no rainfall. Usually you see the sediment load increase once there's precipitation in the watershed, and then it kind of dissipates after a while. But I also noticed in the culvert that goes under Layla Road that there's a buildup of sediment there as well. And so I've never noticed that before. So there's sediment coming into and down Swan Creek into Wabisa wetlands. And so it's a concern that Rock River Coalition has in terms of where this sediment is coming from. And then eventually ending up in Wabisa wetland, which eventually, you have this high sediment coming down there that'll eventually fill in the wetlands in that area. So that's something you definitely want to prevent from happening. And so those are my observations as being a stream volunteer monitor for that site.
Yeah, the Rock River Coalition done some great work with some of their monitoring efforts, and it's really nice to have that data. And some of that data was used in the UW's report on the Wabisa wetlands. But then, having a USGS station, it's a continuous monitoring station. So we're able to capture the before rainfall events, during rainfall events, after rainfall events. It captures a wide range of continuous data, which really helps to have that more robust data set.
Yeah. I also want to point out, I'm also a board member of the Lake Wabisa Conservation Association. It's going on Wabisa wetlands. We've been interacting with the Friends of Wabisa wetlands, and they're in regard to funding. I think, Claudia, if there are other funds out there. I mean, we've heard that the town of Dunn would be interested in contributing toward this monitoring station. I can't speak for the board, the whole board directly, but I think like Lake Wabisa Conservation would kick in some money. You might get some funding from the Village of McFarland, and YLA, Yahar Lakes Association, might be willing to help out as well. So I think there's funding around to get this station put in.
Thank you, Ron, and we'll definitely follow up on those organizations that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in if that's okay. Hi, Mike. My name is Gabrielle Gerhardt. I'm actually the Alder representative on the council or on this commission. And in terms of budget amendments, they have to be submitted by alders. So I would love to have a conversation with you about what that might look like. And Ron, thank you so much for bringing up those other potential funding sources. I think it's a great idea to build partnerships. I think also that demonstrates those partners being interested in it, I think also demonstrates the real value of investing in this and what that looks like. My background as a scientist, I'm a geologist by training. So I'm a big believer that having good data is the key to making good policy decisions. And I think you're right to say that we are growing. We're going to continue to grow. And I think we have to be responsible about our environmental impact and make sure that we are protecting our environment, making sure that it's here for generations to come. So I would love to see that report, and I'll drop my email in the chat so you can.
And I'll just say it's actually in the staff update portion of the packet. There is the link to the report that Mike was referencing.
But yeah, so I would love to work with you, Mike, and Ron. I'd love to be connected with some of those organizations you have contacts with and look at the budget amendment to see if we can get it back in the budget.
Is there a way we could still make some comments during the public meetings in October?
Yes, please. Yes, there are. There's at least one meeting, and I can pull up the date real quick. So the proposed budget's out on the website. And I was going to talk a little bit about it after.
We received, there's October 13th and November 10th are the two public hearing meetings.
Yeah, and I would encourage you all to, if you're interested in any of these topics, to come up. So for example, another thing that didn't make it in was the hybrid and electric vehicle fund that was in the CIP that I mentioned last time, and other issues that are relevant to RCC. So if you all feel inclined to make a statement, there has been a bit of a change recently where the mayor's not going to read written statements out loud anymore. He's just going to register support, yes or no. And then people that can come and speak will of course be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, but there's going to be no more reading aloud of written statements. So that's a bit of a change, and it's going to require people to actually make sure they come. But the nice thing about public hearings is that it's always at the top of the meeting. You don't have to wait until later in the agenda to speak. Usually it's right up top.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those are good perspectives covered. Thank you, Ron, for your new perspective to all of this and your experience. I live in Swan Creek and obviously see all the development that's going on around us here. There's been a lot of apartment buildings that have gone up over the past year for those of you that aren't out in this area very often. And the first business is going into the development right off of Sherwood Parkway and Lacey Road, kind of leading out towards Highway 14. And so it's just a matter of time that those are going to continue to be developed. There's another apartment complex going in there. Obviously, you have the Terravesa, and then all of this is area that's getting closer and closer to Wabisa and that watershed. And so, we better continue to monitor or do a better job of monitoring than what we have in the past if we're adding the station, and be responsible for that. And I think the idea of combining with the other organizations, one helps to keep our funds down, but also puts pressure, as we're kind of the main landholder in the area, to be ones that are helping to make this a reality. So thank you, Mike, for sharing the information, and Ron for your insights right away. Presentation.
Does the city have someone who inspects stormwater, silt fencing and things like that to make sure contractors are doing the right things to prevent runoff? Do they have an inspector?
So the way that it works currently is there are two levels of inspection that are done. The permittee is responsible for providing weekly inspections, and then inspections after half-an-inch rain or greater rainfall events. And then there are oversight inspections that are also provided for construction sites. For most of the construction sites, they are inspected by Dane County on the city's behalf. And for plats, which are the ones where the city is out there inspecting because they're putting out, they're installing public improvements. So city staff are out there already. The city staff are the ones doing the inspections for those projects. But there are two levels of inspections: the inspection by the permittee, and then there are oversight inspections as well.
Is
to identify problems.
Is a permittee required to report the results from their inspection? And if so, how often do they make those inspections?
So they are required to report that, and that's actually available online on Permatrack. I can send you the link to that. That's something that we make publicly available.
Sure, that'd be great.
And yeah, so I'll take that as a follow-up to send to everyone in the RCC so you can see that. And so the city does, in addition to field inspections, we also do an administrative oversight inspection just to make sure that those inspections have been submitted for the prior week. So we do that every Monday. The environmental engineering technician goes into Permatrack to verify that those inspections have been submitted. And then we have a standard operating procedure for if they aren't submitted, then I believe it's the first one or two times it's I believe the first time it's a warning, the second time it's a notice of noncompliance, and then after that it's citations.
Okay. Does the city have a call-in number for people to report if they see something happen? If something gets into the stream or the waterway, or somebody's dumping or doing something illegally, is there a number available for people to call at this city, or contact info?
Yeah, so there are two ways that residents can, contact the city. One is on our website. We have a button that's the Notify Me button. So for any problem that residents see around the city, if it's a culvert that's washed out or a big pothole or erosion control, anything like that, they can go in there. And this was actually something that we just created as a recommendation from CARPC. We created a specific label for erosion control non-compliances. So if someone sees that, they can go in to Notify Me, and then submit that there, and then that would get routed to myself and Dakota. Another option is to, if you go to the erosion control and stormwater management page, then you would see my contact information. And then the third option is if you just don't know who to contact, then you can contact the main number for the city, and then they would know to forward the phone to me or Dakota.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've just been paging through this report here, and it looks very, very complete. And I feel like there's just such a big reason to have this project where you have this area all under development, and like Chris said, you can just see it coming. And I think it's a great idea. I'm not aware of any other. I mean, does Fitchburg have one of these elsewhere? I think this would be a great first one, and I don't know of a better location to have it, right? So I guess I'm all for it, and I think it'd be worthwhile to help try to find some funding if that's kind of what's holding this thing back. But yeah, thanks for talking about this, Mike, and bringing it to at least my attention. Maybe I've forgotten, but this is maybe the first I've seen and kind of looked through it. So appreciate you coming in and talk.
Yeah, thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time to talk with me, and it's really encouraging to hear the support for the monitoring station among the Resource Conservation Commission members, at least. And I'm encouraged to hear that budget amendments a possibility, and make myself available to do whatever I can to help move this forward. So just reach out to me and let me know. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
We were right on time to the second.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Yeah, so let's keep up with that. I know that's pretty interesting project. I think it's not too much money to ask for, but I guess what do I know? So I'm kind of curious, what other, how does Madison, how do these other facilities, utilities pay for this? I mean, does this come out of a budget, or have they identified some grant funds? I don't know if that would be helpful to reach out, but maybe just a loose idea. So.
Well, it might be worthwhile to reach out to the Usgs. They might provide you with other grant funding opportunities that might be available out there. They would know. I'm not sure who the USGS contact was. Maybe Mike knows.
Sure.
And I have that person's contact information as well.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. Any other last thoughts, comments? Claudia, thanks for organizing that. All right, if not, let's move on. Keep on schedule to item 4B, Resolution R-154-20. We have engineering services for the Cyan Road reconstruction. And Claudia, you want to give us a little brief update on that?
Thank you. And actually, Bill volunteered to come in to speak about this. I originally put myself in the agenda, but that's what Bill is here to talk about. So I'll turn it over.
Right. Good evening. Thanks for having me tonight. The Cyan Road Reconstruction Project is in our capital improvement program for 2021-22 for the reconstruction between Aurora Avenue and McCoy Road. We are going to be reconstructing that from a rural section into an urban section. And we are looking at, based upon the traffic, a 3-lane section through there, whether it be a single lane in each direction with wide terraces, or putting in a median in the middle, something to provide as much green space as we can through that corridor where we don't need the extra pavement. So we are looking out for that throughout the corridor. Also included in there, we're looking at bicycle and pedestrian accommodations, where we would extend some sidewalks and some gaps between Lacey Road, south of between Lacey Road and East Sherrill, and then along Lacey Road to connect up to Lacey Road, Heat Farm Road, to the roundabout there. So we would be making that connection there so people can walk along Lacey Road, go into the uptown area. Stormwater is a pretty big concern through here. There's a lot of wetlands and a limited right of way to put that in there. And so we put a scope together for a proposal to do the design work for this project, and went through a process where we asked for the proposals. We put it out for bid. We received 8 proposals in, evaluated those on 5 different criteria, and I'll just quickly share my screen here and find it. There it is. All right, so we went through and we evaluated based upon the experience with projects, the qualifications of personnel that they were using, the completeness or understanding of the project, familiarity with Fitchburg, experience with the preparation of transportation project plats, and the ability to meet the proposed work schedule. We did have them include the cost in there, and honestly, we don't really even look at cost until we find the engineer that we want. So we might have a more expensive proposal, but we're ensured that we have a very complete proposal to complete the project, that they understand the scope and some of all the risks that are involved. They've got great experience coming into it. We're confident in their quality of the work, so we don't have to double check things. And they're able to meet the timelines and make sure that everything is done. So the 2 consultants that rose to the top, actually 3 of them did, were Mead and Hunt, KL Engineering, and Strand. Unfortunately, Strand did not provide a cost for their proposal, so we did not accept them as a candidate to move forward with an interview. So we did go through afterwards and interview Mead and Hunt and KL Engineering, asking them 8 or 9 specific questions regarding their proposals and how they would handle certain situations and what their assumptions were in certain cases. And KL Engineering, it was quite clear their interview and their proposal met the requirements for what we were looking for the project. Their cost there was one of the higher ones. And then what we had done afterwards is we sat down with them, had a meeting, and about the scope of the project. We did add a few things into the project that they were going to be administering for us on our behalf, because it just made sense to coordinate that, such as doing the soil borings and some of the, coordinating those contracts for that, doing traffic counts, things like that. So in the end, we came up with a cost that you see in the bid package, or the agenda package. I believe it was around $680,000 for that, as well as a contingency to accommodate, if there is additional scope change that come out after the public meetings, where we might need to extend the road. We've already heard one already from one of the alders about realigning the Cap City Trail across McCoy and reconfiguring the parking lot with Dane County. So things like that might come up during the project design phase that we're looking to accommodate for. So that's our process that we went through. Quality-based selection of the consultant was not a low bid. So one of the reasons that some of the Jewel one that was very low, they totally did not include anything about property acquisition and transportation plat in their proposal. So it really wasn't a fair apples to apples. When you look at some of the other ones, they really underestimated the hours it would take to do some of the work. So, the price really isn't reflective of the effort that was put into those. And we felt that Mead and Hunt, KL Engineering, and actually, they had a really good proposal and feel confident that we can get a great product in the end. So if you have any questions or concerns, we do have 2 public meetings scheduled for the project or during the design phase. One is kind of an open house where we kind of show you what we think big picture wise and invite the public in to say, hey, why don't you think about doing this, or what, how about that, or, you know, so there's going to be opportunity for public input and committee input. We'll bring through any proposals that involve, you know, resources through the commission here, and make sure you're all involved with that, just to let you give you a heads up and keep you in, you know, up to speed.
Hey, thanks, Bill.
This is Ron. I got a thank you, Bill. This is Ron. I have a question. Analysis up here. What was different from Kapur compared to Mead and Hut and K&L? I mean, they're like $100,000 less. And I mean, if you look at their scoring, you know, they just really scored low in familiarity with the Fitchburg requirements. So just kind of curious why they were eliminated or not being interviewed.
We had selected the Mead and Hut and KL. Well, Kapur scored, like you said, with familiar with the requirements of Fitchburg. And we just felt as a whole that, you know, being so far away that with their office and public involvement, that we just kind of, well, we just felt that they just didn't have the experience with Fitchburg at all.
Where are they located?
Out of Milwaukee.
Okay. But still, it's $100,000 difference there.
Right. They did have, they did not have anything in there for real estate acquisition, which is about $90,000 worth of contract fee that we're estimating in this project. So it would bring it right up to the other two.
The other two had that in theirs?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that explains the difference then.
Yeah, Bill, thanks for the explanation. So this is right outside my house. I cross Cyan just about every day, either driving or walking across it. It is a narrow corridor in some spots. You know, one of the questions as part of the design is there's they put a new subdivision just across Cyan Road from Swan Creek, and there's some power lines that are really low hanging through that area. Are those, is part of the design to bury those?
Probably not. We did an estimate for burying the power lines through that area, and it came up to be about $1.3 million. Oh, wow. And given the budget that we have for the project, it's just not feasible to do it unless, you know, it gets reprioritized, that some other project gets let go to be able to do that. So we did look at it, and it is expensive to do that. So it's, yeah, they're going to probably have to relocate their power lines anyway, you know, the poles at least, but it's going to be nowhere near as expensive to the utility companies to do that.
Hey, Bill, thanks again for giving us all this information. Do you happen to have a map or of this project right now, or the proposal?
No, not really. I do, but I didn't put it in the packet. I could send it to you.
That'd be great. I also live in Swan Creek. I'm just like to see what the proposal is.
Sure.
Thanks.
So the biggest challenges, Bill, obviously are going to be probably space. Just to, you know, if you're trying to get 2 lanes, are you trying to get 2 lanes or just 1 lane? I mean, you're gonna.
We only need 1 lane of traffic in each direction because there's limited access throughout the corridor. So we don't need a 4-lane facility through there, but we do need enough accommodation at the intersections for turn lanes. Mm-hmm. And so it's a matter of, in order to, you know, reduce the speeds through the area, which is a concern, we really want to make the make the corridor feel like it's a tight corridor to slow the traffic down. So, you know, using things like medians and a lot of treescaping and things where people just don't feel like they can just step on the gas and go, as well as pedestrian refuge islands, traffic circles, you know, not maybe a traffic circle, but maybe we're looking at a mini roundabout possibly at 9 Bark Central Place there.
Okay.
So similar to what's going in at Greenway Cross and Bryant Road would be a candidate to put something like that in there. But we are looking at all of those, you know, pedestrian, bicycles, how you're going to get around through the neighborhood. So we're looking into all that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, in my 12 years here, it has gotten more difficult to get out of that intersection now that there's more cars coming through that area in the mornings when we used to commute to work and stuff way back about 6-7 months ago. You know, I think that'll be something, you know, and I think you're doing all your homework on traffic counts and so forth. And I think, you know, focusing on those intersections, you know, as of right now, if I turn right to come into the subdivision, there's also the traffic that's going straight right behind me. And so, you know, they have to wait for me to turn. So there's not a designated turn lane. So obviously, you know, this is all part of the plan, and it's going to be a challenging design because of the narrow corridor, the stormwater, and, you know, you do have, you know, bike paths nearby that can probably be used by others. So are you planning not to put bike lanes on this stretch?
No, we're planning to put bike lanes on this as well.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes.
You have enough space to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's especially since pandemic, it's been used a lot, Swan Creek pathways, and then with the new apartments and the new subdivision, Uptown Crossing, and all the apartments off of East Sherrill, it's really gotten busy. So I don't know how much data you have on that, but Chris can tell you we had a nice little peaceful area until all the new apartments and housing came in. So, and it's not bad. Just saying, it's pretty crowded at times. So it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for filling us in. Are we voting on this today?
Yeah, I think we can put a vote in. Yeah, well, the recommendation from this body will come before the council. It'll be noted in the packet for the next meeting when this comes back. And I just want to say, Bill, thank you so much for bringing this to RCC. Really appreciate
Sure.
you being here tonight. It's great for us to be able to get in and have some of these conversations early on in the process. So we really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know, you know, looking through the scope here just real quick, you know, it looks like, you know, you guys are going to look at the 2 existing stormwater facilities plus 2 more, you know, stormwater facilities. I know I've seen a high water sign on that road a couple of times. I do appreciate, you know, having the time to talk about this, and, you know, I'm sure we'll be talking about it in the future, but just wanted to add that.
All right. Thank you.
Are there significant stormwater issues in the area? Because I actually I don't travel on this road during the big storm period. So I don't know if Claudia or Bill wants to speak to that. I assume that this is going to take care of some existing problems. But I'm just curious what those problems might be.
I'm not aware in this section. I'm not aware of any problems north of Cyan, north of McCoy. I'm sorry, that area across the wetlands. That one does flood in the turn lane, and like you said, the high water lanes up there. But I don't think that there's really any flooding issues in the area.
Yeah, I mean the only so it's between Sherrill Parkway and 9 Bark. There's a wooded area, and it's just kind of right now it's pretty dry because we did have a drier summer. But back in 2018, when the rains were really heavy, the water did fill up in that area and actually crossed the walking path in Swan Creek. So, you know, I just want to make, you know, you guys aware of that, you know, it hasn't been, you know, that's the only time I've seen that in the 13 years I've been in Swan Creek, but it did cross over that. And, you know, if we do have heavy periods of rain over an extended period of time, that whole area can fill up with water. It's done it before, and I'm sure it has the potential to do it again in the future. Just be kind of thinking about that, as a consideration with the stormwater, that, the capacity there is limited to hold more, I guess.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm a little rusty on how we do these. Do we motion these to be approved, right?
Yeah, I think we should have done a motion to start the discussion, but let's do it now. I'll motion to approve resolution R-15420 engineering services for Cyan Road reconstruction.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Shelley seconds. All righty. We already had good discussion on it, so we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving R-154-20, say aye.
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 And opposed, say nay. All right. RCC approves this referral.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again, Bill.
All right, any last thoughts? Otherwise, let's keep moving. Great. All right, let's move on to agenda item 4C, virtual events. I know Chris reached out to me and said, hey, we should, I've been craving to have some get-togethers or some meetings, but, obviously we can. And so, the next best thing that, I'm sure everybody has done is have these virtual meetings or virtual conferences. And so, yeah, I think talk about this now. And, Chris, if you had some ideas you want to start with.
Sure. Well, we had our first Resource Conservation Commission community outreach meeting since early March. So it was just Kim and I for the meeting. Phil was heading out on vacation, so he wasn't able to join us. But we talked about, finding a way to continue to do outreach. So for the newer members, ahead of the pandemic, our pace was, we're having at least, an event every quarter. And ever since the pandemic hit, we've screeched to a halt, essentially, on doing any type of outreach. So outside of the green e-news that Phil sends out, or, our articles, I guess, in the Fitchburg Star and occasional Facebook posts, we're not doing any other, events. And obviously it's hard to do an in-person event at the current time. But there are, potentially some opportunities for us to do virtual events. I think at this point, between now and the end of 2020, I don't foresee us planning for or holding any type of in-person event. And that could extend, a ways into 2021. As of right now, talking best case scenario that a vaccine starts to get out at the end of this year. By the time that gets through to all portions of the general public, we could be in the middle of 2021 by that point. So I think, it's something good that we were doing. I think that there's opportunities to potentially do it and get good information out to folks. So we are continuing to connect with people that, want to be informed or want to hear intriguing talks about different aspects. We've done, so many different talks over the year. I think I do have a list if anybody is interested in all the different events and talks that we've done over the years. Some recent ones that come to mind are we've had Professor Tin Jim from UW-Madison come in and talk about renewable energy and provide answers. And it was a really great session, and people really enjoyed the session with him. I think he would be willing to potentially do, an event. Kim and I talked about, just all of these different things that, we, have to do outreach on in Fitchburg, and we tend to do through the Fitchburg Star. But we thought that, we could probably, with Claudia and Phil and, some of us kind of put on our own event and potentially talk about, just, how-to things in Fitchburg. So could be from recycling. We could do a little demo on composting. We could just kind of run the full gamut, of ideas, of different things that we've done outreach on in the past. How to place your trash carts at the end of your driveway. There's a lot of different things that we could potentially talk about. So I guess I wanted to bring it to this group and just, one, kind of get input on, what people think about having a virtual event. And then two, what are some virtual events that you think, would be timely, tie into kind of environmental sustainability as a topic, and be something that we would think that would be worthwhile to go through a planning process to make those a reality sometime, maybe one event even yet this year.
So I have one suggestion. We just had our first tree advisory meeting since I was elected, and I'm also on the tree advisory commission. So one of the things we discussed was public outreach about tree diversity and the importance of property owners self-selecting trees that are more than just, obviously people know that ash is not the best tree to choose right now, but people tend to default to what they know, and maple has been really popular. But apparently it's very likely that the next beetle that may, tree boring beetle that may hit the United States is actually going to target maple trees. And we kind of just had a general conversation about tree diversity and how important that is to a healthy city. And so there's some early conversations about what that looks like and how that communication could happen. And I do think there's potential overlap there with RCC. And I think there might be some tree advisory committee members that might even be interested to help plan it. And I think Anna Healy, the forestry expert in Fitchburg, might be willing to do something. So anyway, it's a thought. Could be a cool collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's an idea, it's an event that we haven't done before. And so it would be, a new topic. And, I think, at this point, there's certain residents in Fitchburg that are looking for something to do. And I think that's, a lot of people are spending more time with the trees at this point and maybe caring for their own trees. So I think that would be a great idea for a potential event.
I do wonder too, is if there's something that, if there's potential to do some sort of self-guided walking tours at the Arboretum where you can point out trees, you can check out trees that could select for your yard. So people have the opportunity to maybe check it out as part of an event and get some advice about how to make those decisions, and then also go out and be able to see the trees in person, especially now that it's fall and potentially quite beautiful. And yeah.
Is the Arboretum on this side of the Beltline? Is that in Fitchburg? No?
I'm pretty sure it's in Madison proper.
Okay.
But I actually, I guess I'm not 100% certain.
No, it's Madison.
Okay.
It's Madison.
Yeah, I like that. Very interesting for folks to hear that. Also, if we could get some additional information on trees, like which ones are right to plant in certain areas, because some trees send out large tap roots to get into your pipes and sewer lines, things like that. So
Ron, we kind of lost you there.
send down the deep. So yeah, we can find out things like that homeowners know, hey, we're buying a tree, but you're planting it right next to your water intake or your line like that could impact it in the future. So knowing what type of tree to buy and where to place it, I think that any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I think the more practical the information for the homeowners, the stronger the event will be.
Is that any better?
I think it's a great idea. I like that idea of doing something about trees.
I can see. Yeah, I can see it. I was saying, I think it would be. Yep. You know?
Lost you again, Ron.
Oh, can you hear me now? I can hear you.
We can hear you right now.
Okay, I can hear. I'm standing in this one place.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to say that everyone's gonna kind of shelter up this winter, they're gonna be anxious to do something in the spring. And so the more they learn about what they could potentially do in the spring, like plant a tree or, some of these other ideas, I think that's great, a great push.
Yeah, we could potentially do it as a bike, since the Arboretum isn't in Fitchburg, we could do it along the Capital City Bike Trail. Somebody could pick off, potential different varieties of trees, and there could be, a little map that people could follow as a scavenger hunt to see different types of trees. That maybe you could do that in a couple different parts of Fitchburg and maybe have a, half dozen to 10 or 12 trees that people could go out and identify and see what they look like.
Yeah, maybe the bike committee even would want to help advertise it too.
Yeah.
Let's get some clips.
I always feel
Sorry,
pretty weak in naming different types of trees. So this is something that I'm very interested in. I should know trees better than I do. And I probably can only name more than a handful myself.
So as a next step, should I perhaps Chris, should I connect you with Anna and then also the members of the tree advisory board that we're looking at into tree diversity specifically in public outreach, and maybe we can start it?
Yeah, no, we could certainly, we have the experience in putting on those types of events, or at least leading a brainstorming session to kind of come up with the event idea. I think we've gotten a good one, right now, and I think we can work with them and see if we can develop something. And with that, I think, proper timing for the event will come out. I do think that spring might be a good time for that because it would correlate with the time when people are thinking about planting trees. So I think that would maybe be a good event for the spring.
I think spring would be a good time. The trees will be leafing out. You have the spring migration occurring with the warblers and other birds passing through. So it gives people, if we're outdoors, it gives people opportunity to see, attraction to wildlife to the different types of trees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me circle back. Is this going to be a virtual event then, or?
Well, I think the actual content of the event, I think we could have it kind of be kind of a dual event. You could do that, but then there's also going to be the opportunity for people to maybe go on a self-guided bike tour.
Okay.
So I think there'd be kind of a two-pronged approach to it.
And that would be also one where I think it would be pretty easy to take advantage of some really solid bike maps that Bike Fitchburg and the Chamber of Commerce and Bike Committee over the years have put together. Wouldn't need to reinvent the wheel, but kind of modify those to sort of put some wayfinding points on the maps themselves and use what's already out there.
Sounds good. I guess, are there any other ideas for virtual events? So, I think it sounds like we're pretty much all in on the tree diversity. Thank you, Gabrielle. And just wondering if there's any other ideas out there that people have for events that maybe we could think about doing this fall or this.
I think that's sort of along the lines of anything that gets into sort of a citizen science type of activity is something that translates really well to online delivery, and then people can kind of go out on their own to track, to identify, to monitor. If you're doing some type of wildlife or species monitoring, then they can report back through, again, electronic means. But there are a number of I know that's a really broad topic, citizen science, but there's a lot of different ways that you can engage people to whether they're going through things like phenology and just tracking what's going on around their house as the seasons change, or if they're actually more actively doing wildlife or species monitoring. I think those are types of things that fit really well with what we're able to do right now.
Chris, I did like your idea of kind of doing like a grab. Maybe you weren't intending this, but I was kind of in my head, I was thinking like a grab bag video where we kind of demonstrate how to be a sustainable Fitchburg resident, of putting your cart where it should be and doing what your leaves are supposed to be. So I don't know if that would be like a PowerPoint presentation. We, maybe do a couple clips and then we play it out and maybe do a Q&A session at the end or something. That's what was going through my head when you first introduced that. So I don't know if that's what you were intending, but again, another loose thought of mine.
They also do video of some kind too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think anything that we do online, we should consider recording and making available on the city channels. And maybe, well, we should coordinate with Fact TV to make sure that that happens. But I think making it an evergreen thing, I think, has a lot of potential.
Just another idea that I guess is unrelated to those topics, but I've been working with SaltWise on getting the message out on salt. One of the ideas that we are currently vetting and seeing, I guess, who has capacity to help make it happen is maybe trying to have a salt awareness week, which would involve various, I guess, events each day is kind of the plan. One that I was hoping we could do in Fitchburg would just be a demo of various salt reduction, I guess, technologies, if you want to call it that. But for example, salt spreaders that would do a better job of spreading out salt, so you're not overusing salt when you're using it on your driveway, and then also using not just a shovel, but also a scraper so that you can get do a better job of removing ice. So that might reduce the need to use salt at all. And I guess the idea for that one was to do it potentially outside of a hardware store where you might be able to buy all the things that we would be demoing, and then that would be filmed and then also, of course, made available to folks. And so that was kind of the idea of the Salt Awareness Week. It's still in the very preliminary stages of being organized. So I don't want to like put it out there that we're definitely doing it, but that's something that we're working on. And if it doesn't end up happening for the entire week, maybe we could still do just a demo day or something like that.
Yeah, so I mean, would this be a in-person event or would you do it virtually?
So for the demo itself, that would be in person for the people who are doing the demonstrations, but then it would just be broadcast.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've put a lot of effort into that over the last couple of years, and so I'd like to keep our momentum going with that. Obviously, our plastic bags in the grocery stores, which we've done a lot of events for over the past couple of years, that's pretty shot right now. I've gotten scolded for taking my bags in, even when I intended to be the person packing my bags. Then all of a sudden, an elf shows up, or a beggar shows up and bags my groceries for me. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Well,
it's tough right now.
Yeah, it is tough, and we'll have to get back on the messaging with that at some point. I guess maybe people that are going through the self-checkout, that's one way they could do that, but I'm really sure some grocery stores may not even want those bags in their stores. I'm not, maybe it has eased off in the ever since the beginning of the pandemic. I know that was a little bit bigger early on, but I think as long as people are washing their hands, it's less of a chance now. At least I feel better about it now than I did early on.
Right. Another idea that I had that was maybe not necessarily an event, but I think signage is also a really good way to increase awareness of various efforts that we might have. We put up a sign over at the recycling drop-off site about unlimited recycling, and there was a typo on the sign, and I heard about it from probably 15 different people that there was a typo, which on the one hand I was like, oh, that's really stinks that we haven't had a typo, but on the other hand I was like, that's great, a lot of people are reading this. So I think that's another opportunity, is just putting up signs, because I think people read them. So that's another thing I just wanted to throw out there. I was thinking maybe work on putting together some additional signage for the recycling drop-off site.
Mm-hmm. I guess to piggyback on that, Claudia, I like that idea. Is I don't know if there's a way the city could have to do some type of a video showing that when you pull up to the recycling center drop-off, here's what you can and can't do. you can't, drop off big, huge trees there. Or you can't put this type of plastic or styrofoam here. These are the type of certain things you can do. Some type of a short video that shows people what you can do when you pull up to this site.
I know we have a lot of signs that say what you can and can't do. I would have to do a little research to see if we have any capability of putting up a video screen. Off the cuff, I want to say we probably don't have that kind of equipment. I know that we have a billboard where we can put words, words on a billboard. But in terms of an actual video playing like on a TV monitor.
No. I'm thinking about having somebody like the city film of people going out and doing the right things, the correct things and the wrong things. So it'd be a short video that we would post on our website. They say,
Okay.
Here's, John Doe pulling up here. He's pulling this big tree out of his truck. No, you can't do that. Or you can't put this in this container, but you can do this, put this in this container, something like that to show what you can do and can't do at this site. And then they can watch it or before they go there and find out, I get there and they read the sign. Oh no, I can't drop this off. And they do it anyway. So
I kind of like that idea. I know when I live in Madison and when I first went to the recycling drop-off site in Madison, I kind of wanted to know what it looked like before I got there, just so that I wasn't confused and driving the wrong way or, anything like that. So I kind of like that idea of maybe even like a drive-by type video of here are all of the facilities and here's what it looks like when you drive in, and then these, and maybe not shaming people for doing the wrong thing, but at least maybe like a voiceover on panning around the facility and kind of discussing common mistakes or what is and isn't allowed. I think that would be really, really great, and maybe something that we can coordinate with Fact TV. I like that idea a lot.
RCC could be the actors.
Hey, if you want to volunteer,
They could pull
that
up
would
with
be
a bunch
great.
of big brush and start pulling it out of his truck, and then you go over and politely tell him that he can put it there.
There you go. I'll set up a follow-up email if anyone wants to be involved. I think that would be.
Yeah, I would love to be involved.
All right.
When we first moved to
link, you could put a link up there too and people could look at it on their phone while they're there waiting or whatever.
Sure.
That's a good idea.
So, it's actually pretty timely right now because everybody's getting ready to do all of their fall work and clean up. And so, anytime I go there in the fall, it's just like, especially like on a Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon, it's just one car after another. So it's like nonstop. So it would be nice to, release it. And, I don't think it would be too hard for us to pull off. So, if we want to do that, we should probably get on it. Otherwise, we could wait till the spring if we think, things are just too busy to do that right now. I think, a lot of good ideas. I think, we can have some follow-up email correspondence and talk more with Fitchburg, Fact TV, and see if that would be a possibility. And Claudia, you and I can kind of think more about how that might get pulled off and what messaging we could potentially do with a video, and maybe bounce it off the Fact TV people and say, these are the messages that we want to get out. We're thinking of doing a little script, how could we do this? And maybe they could come up with it. I don't know. We could figure it out, but then, kind of these other ideas, we could work on developing these. So between now and the next meeting, I will meet with the community outreach subcommittee, and we'll also work on developing these ideas out a little bit more. But I thank everybody for the good ideas, and we'll develop these. And, I think we can get a couple of virtual type events, or at least not gathering in-person events on the calendar to kind of get back and feel like we're doing our outreach part on sustainability in Fitchburg.
Cool. Yeah, definitely some good ideas. We'll have this on the agenda next time too, just to see where we're progressing to. But yeah, no, I think that was a good discussion, a lot of good ideas, and let's keep moving.
I think we're 12 minutes behind. So I think
I'll
let you move on to the next event.
Yeah. So let's move on to 4D update, or maybe just an introduction too on the East Fire Station solar project. Phil, let's see, we got 10 minutes to talk about that. Is that good?
I don't think it should take that long, but sure. So I think everybody should be aware that we have another new rooftop solar project going up in the city, or already has gone up. Sunvest, a company based in Milwaukee, I believe they've got a location closer to Madison as well. They completed installation of a new rooftop solar array at the East Fire Station on Cyan Road. Just received some photos and videos from them in the last couple of days, so I wasn't able to get those into the packet. But I can do a quick screen share here. Let's just go with, I don't have them up yet, maybe. Let's go find that folder. So these will take a second to load, but nope, and they popped up on my other monitor. So the East Fire Station now has this lovely solar array put up on top of it. This is, I believe, a 101 kilowatt project. It should be, we won't get quite this much in the remainder of this year, about 40-50% of it, but in a full year, this should be generating about 120,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, which is about 2% of what the city uses right now. So that takes us pretty close to 10% of our municipal energy just being generated by our own solar panels. So that's a pretty nice step for us, that just through distributed solar, we're going to be pretty close to 10% of our electricity that is independent of the utility, between this and the 2017 project and several municipal buildings, and then the 2009 and 11 projects as well. If you add in the solar, the green energy that we're purchasing from MG&E, as well as just what's part of their general energy mix, with this array in now, we're definitely right around or just over 20% of our electricity coming from renewable sources. And then with the O'Brien field that's slated to go in next year, we should be pretty close to 40%. So we're in a really good place with our 25 by 25 commitments, as has been the message every time renewable energy has come up over the last few meetings. We're doing well. Going to need to be a little more aggressive and creative to get to that 100% by 2030, but certainly the 25 by 25, we're in great shape. And these panels look absolutely fantastic. Sunvest is going to be releasing a press release in the coming days. I did get an initial, I think I can pull that up as well. I did get an initial draft version of the press release here from Sunvest. So you can see the numbers here: 101 kilowatt system, 120,000 kilowatt hours annually. So it's a pretty significant project. We're just really excited to get yet another set of solar panels on city property. Just a really, really cool opportunity to keep building our own renewable portfolio and keep demonstrating the commitment to clean energy.
Yeah, it's awesome to see percent is what we're coming up on now. That's really a pretty impressive number. It's been the last 5 years that we've really come a long ways on that. At one point, I didn't think that I didn't see how we were gonna get to 25 by 25, and we're gonna do it. So
it makes a big difference that the utility is being more aggressive about it as well now. That helps a ton. We're definitely reliant on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. We'll have to add that to the list of a future kind of tour of all the facilities. I know that went well last time, but then next year or two, there'll be a lot more facilities. Do you have any update, Phil, on the O'Brien field? I know I drove by and saw that there was some equipment being staged.
I do. Let me see if I put that in the staff. I can. The short update is that we're waiting on the Public Service Commission to approve the contracts. But I think I've got that in the staff update as well.
Okay, well, we can circle back. That's okay. Great, thanks for the update. That was less than 10 minutes, so I appreciate it.
Only 7 minutes behind now.
Let's keep moving to agenda item 4E, the proposed 2021 reuse and recycling rates. It's that time of year again to talk about those. So Claudia, you want to take it away?
Yes. So what I'm sharing on the screen right now are, this is from the mayor's proposed operating budget, and this is just a list of the significant budget changes from last year to this year. So you can see that the pickup costs for solid waste recycling, brush and yard waste, of course, have increased per the contract with Pelletary. And we've also seen a big increase in the use of yard waste being dropped off at the recycling drop-off site. So we were requesting an increase in the grinding budget from $15,000 to $20,000 per year, and that just reflects the need to have someone come in more frequently and more hours to get through the material, because we do pay on an hourly basis to have someone out there to grind. And then there has been an increase in the cost to dispose of oil and oil filters. This is just the cost now. So previously it was $2,500 a year that we had for that. And now it's been separated into 3 items, which includes tire disposal, oil disposal, and oil filter disposal, 3, 4, almost $5,000 there. And then another change that's being proposed is adding 2 more containers to the recycling drop-off site. That's just due to the increase in cardboard that we have seen at the recycling drop-off site. So those 2 containers would be serviced at the same rate as the other 8 containers that are there, which is 5 times a week. So we are hoping that that will really help keep up with the cardboard usage at the recycling drop-off site. We also had a request to put in a bulk, this is a screener for compost. We originally had a cost for a screener based on some initial research, and it was a used piece of equipment, and that equipment was no longer available when we went to purchase it the next year. But it was also, when we did a little bit more digging, that piece of equipment really wouldn't suffice for the volume of compost that we go through. So we really did need, I guess, a heavier duty piece of equipment if we wanted to be able to supply screened compost. So those are the significant budget changes. In the packet, I have all of the accounts, and then the proposed budget is over here. So if you wanted to read that in more detail, that's available in the packet. And then this screen here is the recommended budget change, or sorry, the recommended rate change. So in 2020, the rate was $203 per year for homes, and the apartment brush rate was $6.25. The recommendation is to increase that to $209 and $640, and that's an increase of about 3%. And we will be using some of the fund balance in order to make that happen. We will still be within the 33%, which is kind of the recommendation for where you want your fund balance to be. So that's, I guess, the rationale for that proposed $209 for the rate. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions. I mean, 3% matches inflation, right? So that's what it is.
We did make a big jump last year. a significant jump, and it was, kind of a contract, first year of the new contract with Pelletary, but we made a huge jump. I don't know, just to show some of our newer members where we're at before we started, at our current rate of 203. Do we have that up there?
So in 2019, it was 162.
So just for Gabriella and Ron, we made a really, and I noticed that our fund balance, it sounds like to stay at the 33%. And I think, it seems like we're trying to, exhaust as many options as possible to try to keep the funding down, but there's ultimately just some expenses, all the expenses that you went over at the recycling center all made, reasonable sense. Claudia, everybody's getting all these packages at home, and, the holidays is going to be even worse. I guess, would those new carts go into service? Would they go into service like at the end of this year in Q4, or is it going to be more so at the start of 2021?
So there is no funding available to add that to the contract as a change order for this year. That's why I added additional funds for next year. So when I put through a contract amendment resolution, there will be funding available for that. So my goal is for that to go in immediately starting next year.
Mm-hmm. And just, a little bit more background on, making the jump. There were some things that we, tried to do on the, resource concert, or we talked about doing, as trying to, find creative ways to try to keep, our budget amount down. And Claudia had come up with a really, kind of interesting idea of collections to try to reduce that by, I think it was just 2 brush collections. And I think that amount was coming out more so like at 185 or 190, but, ultimately there was, a little bit of, I think, pushback on, reducing the brush collections, even though I thought you did a really good job of, redesigning kind of our brush pickup schedule for the community and taking a couple out. And so, outside of that, I'm not really sure what else we can do to, keep this down any lower than what it is, other than, pushing our fund balance and being a little bit tighter on that, So, but it seems like, 33% is where we want to be, and that's how this, amount was picked. I guess I just wanted to share that background with others that, may have forgotten the jump that we made last year. This is a relatively small jump in comparison to that, but, still quite a bit more than what we were paying back in 2018 and 2019 even.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it is a big jump, a $40 jump that you did last year. So I was kind of curious why you had a big jump. Thank you for sharing that.
And just to give some, I guess, additional background is the way that we have our solid waste contract is we have 5-year contract cycles. And so our contract with Pelletary came to an end, and then we put it back out to bid. And we've really seen the cost of recycling has gone up quite a bit, especially since countries such as China, who used to take a lot of recyclables to process, they're no longer taking recyclables. So it's harder to find markets for recyclable materials, which is driving up the cost of recycling. And so that was reflected in the prices that we got back when we put out that bid.
I think, another thing that probably plays a little bit of a role in why Pelletary's costs are a little bit higher is, I understand from a study that was done with the city of Madison, and I imagine Fitchburg would be fairly similar, although we've gotten pretty good reviews on how clean our recycling stream is that's coming into Pelletary, but around 18% of the material that goes in the recycling, that people put in the recycling carts, ends up going to the landfill because it can't be recycled. So, the messaging of recycling better, kind of sets us up for, when, come around to the next 5-year cycle, if that's, say we've dropped that down to 10% through doing good outreach, there's a chance that, our increase on the next 5-year cycle won't be as large a jump as what we, had here. I'm also hopeful that the recycling markets, because of what Claudia mentioned, being a less of a market that's going to China, although that was mostly on the coast, in the Midwest, we're a little bit isolated from that, but it still affected some of our stuff. But, hopefully the recycling markets continue to develop in the Midwest. People are trying to be thrifty with kind of the current budget situation in a lot of areas. So there's, like Claudia said, other factors that kind of, drove that cost up that were a little bit outside of our control.
I had a quick question, Claudia. Is the tire recycling or disposal, is that new?
No, that's been in the budget previously. We just, what's the word? We put them into different, categories just so people could see the breakdown a little bit better. But that's been in there before. And that's for, municipal vehicles, if those tires need to be recycled, but also if there are tires just on the side of the road, that is something that city staff will take care of picking up so we don't have littering around the city.
Hey, Claudia,
Yeah.
you mentioned what the feedback was from after we raised those prices last year, if we got feedback from the community about that?
I think I got a couple of calls, but I really didn't get a whole lot of calls. And I'm not sure if that's because a lot of times if the front reception staff are familiar with the project, then they might just answer those questions before forwarding them to me. But I didn't hear too much.
Thank you.
And then last question, Claudia, if you know the answer to this, just in terms of having the fund balance at 33%, is there some reasoning behind having the fund balance that we do? What are kind of some of the threats that could pop up that would tap into that fund balance?
And unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that question. I know that there is rationale behind that magic number, or there's actually a range. And I know that's something that Misty would be more familiar with. Unfortunately, I don't know. I know that we do rely, for example, on DNR. They have a recycling grant, and I believe it's almost $100,000 from that recycling grant. So if that money were to dry up, then that's something that we would need to be able to absorb. That's, I guess, the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that might be problematic.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we should continue to try to, maybe dig in a little bit harder and try to figure out ways that if there's any creative ways that we can, try to keep these down through, grants that might be out there. I know that one grant that I'm looking at is a municipal grant with the Carton Council. That's, we're talking about it, kind of in the greater Madison area and trying to do recycling better across the greater Madison area, which kind of gets at that, trying to keep that 18% number down so that Pelletier doesn't have as big of a cost, having to take, 20% essentially of the things that people put in recycling carts and then have to, handle that twice and take it to the landfill after that. So, that might be something that I guess I'm working on, not necessarily part of the Fitchburg RCC, but just as a heads up that, trying to figure out ways to try to keep this number down to keep it from increasing as much as it has over the past several years.
Claudia, is this going to go to council then next, or do we have to vote on it next time?
So I would the next step would be to put together a resolution. I just wanted to bring it to RCC first to see if there was any input, any thoughts on potentially a different unit charge number, more or less. I know this I noticed this was actually already in the mayor's operating budget, which I'm not sure if we've done it that way in the past, but so I think I would probably put it in as this number, just because I did see that reflected in the mayor's operating budget. But if RCC had another opinion, then of course that's something that could be brought to Common Council if folks felt otherwise.
Yeah, sometimes Diane has an opinion on this with her accounting mind. She typically weighs in during this part of the discussion. So I wouldn't mind if you're able to reach out to her and just see if she had any input on this.
All right, I can do that.
Because I think she might have missed a discussion potentially last year too at the same time.
Yep. Thanks for putting this together, and
Thank
really
you.
showing kind of how you came to that number. So it makes sense to me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you, Claudia.
All right, let's keep it moving on to old business now. Item 5A, stormwater rebate programs in surrounding communities. I know it's tied into the previous meeting where we were having a discussion. Fitchburg was giving back too much based on kind of the new policy that Claudia has been helping to put together. And so I think there's something in the packet that, shows good description. And Claudia, were you the one who did the research?
Yes. So just a little bit of background. So we currently have a rebate program at the city of Fitchburg, which offers up to a 50% off of your ERUs if you put in water quality or water reduction facilities on your property. And the proposal, well, currently you're able to get that rebate, even if you're putting in things that were just required by ordinance. So you would have to do that anyway. So the recommendation was to make it so that you could only be eligible for the 50% rebate if you were doing something above and beyond the ordinance requirements. And one of the follow-ups from that discussion is the RCC was interested in seeing what surrounding communities are doing. So I took a look at what some of the nearby communities are doing, and I put that in here. City of Verona, they have a one-time rebate for $10 per rain barrel, and then they have a rain garden rebate up to 50% of the cost of plants for a max rebate of $150 per house. City of Middleton didn't have anything. City of Madison, they had a policy. It didn't mention a maximum rebate, but it seemed more geared towards the stormwater rate, and the stormwater rate in the city of Fitchburg too is based on how much impervious area you have. And so the way that they phrased theirs is that if you have something in place that would make it so that you effectively have less impervious area, then you would have to provide supporting documentation to make a case that you should have, that you should be charged for less impervious area. For the city of Stoughton, they have peak flow reduction, and they also have stormwater quality improvement with a maximum credit of 50% reduction in ERUs. So that's similar to Fitchburg with our 50% reduction. Wanakee, none. Village of McFarland, they had runoff rate, runoff volume, and quality improvement. So that's similar to Fitchburg because we have all three of those as well. currently we only have volume reduction and quality improvement. And the recommendation was to also add runoff rate. So the proposal is to have all three of those. But that is something that the Village of McFarland does. They also, I thought this was really interesting, they have a credit available to school properties if they have a stormwater and water resources management education curriculum in their school, and it needs to be reasonably calculated to encourage appreciation and stewardship of water resources and thereby reduce negative impacts on local streams and lakes. And I believe, yes, so every student needs to be exposed to that material at least once during their students' time at that school. I thought that was a really cool idea. That's not something that was in what I had put together, but I thought that was a worthwhile rebate. I thought that was very, very worthwhile.
That's very creative.
Yeah, that is creative. And then they also had a rebate if you directly discharge into a lake. So if it doesn't even go through the, if your stormwater doesn't go through the municipal system at all, then you could get a rebate for that. The maximum credit was only to the variable cost component of the calculation and not the fixed cost component. And they needed to certify in writing that their maintenance, that they are performing maintenance on these practices. And if you don't, then you would have a cancellation of your credit. That's similar to something that Fitchburg put in place earlier this year, requiring that folks certify that they are maintaining their practices in order to continue to receive their credit. And then the city of Monona had none. So those are the immediately surrounding communities. I also included this report. It's a little bit old because it's from 2009, but the city of Middleton actually commissioned MSA to look at 36 Wisconsin municipalities and take a look at the credit types that were being made available. And I thought it was just in a very easy to read format to compare. So even though it's 2009, I put it in here anyway. So you can easily see that the max amount of the credit ranges from, 50%, 100%, 85%, some are down to 30 or 20%. But one of the questions that we had last time is that is a 50% reduction too much? Is that out of line with what other people are doing? And I think this kind of answers that question, that it really isn't at least out of line in terms of what other municipalities are doing, because you can see that there are other municipalities that are offering very high max credits as well. So that is something that I put together. I know this is something that Bill and I will still need to work on to, I know he wanted a little bit more time to do his own research and make sure he felt comfortable with what was being proposed. So I don't foresee a resolution, certainly not by the October meeting, but hopefully still sometime this year. It will be dependent on staff availability to get back to this topic. But I did want to follow up on that question from last time. I guess, did anyone else have any questions on what was being proposed or what nearby communities are doing?
I just find it interesting how Middleton paid to have this done, but yet they don't have any rebates.
I found that interesting too. I was thinking maybe I should read their ordinance, because what I did is I went through their website to see if they have rebates available, but maybe I should read their ordinance in detail, because I thought that was interesting too.
Well, I think you did a great job with other communities, just showing that we're we're not too, out there. So thanks for the effort.
Yeah, I think this is great, and it's nice to know what other municipalities do. My one question, though, I mean, I guess one of the things that popped out to me in that last discussion was the fact that the ordinance for developers, like the minimum required stormwater expectation, was already high enough to get the rebate. And I remember that being kind of a part of the conversation was, should we reward people for doing the minimum that they're required to by city ordinance? And I think we all landed on the fact that we should probably make a change to that. Did you find anything else like that? Or if Fitchburg has higher requirements than other municipalities.
I did see, I think it might have been, I didn't put it in here. I think it might have been the Village of McFarland. When I was reading through their ordinance, they specifically said that you were only eligible for a credit if you were implementing a stormwater practice that wasn't specifically required by ordinance. So that was pretty similar to what we were proposing and thinking. So I know there's at least one other community that does it that way. I would say most communities don't do it that way though. Most communities, it's just based on what you're achieving rather than whether or not you were required to achieve that by ordinance.
Speaking of that, the education credit, I know I saw something with that new Oregon school being, I think, successfully completed. Maybe I could look into, see there's someone who could come in and talk about it, but with it being, was it carbon neutral? Or at least energy neutral? I think that'd be a very interesting discussion. Side thought, but. Okay, well, yeah, like you said, Claudia, we'll probably have another discussion before anything's finalized. So thanks for doing the research.
No problem.
I think you have the next topic here with the leaf-free street signs, which I received my sign today. I think it was your intern dropping it off.
Yes.
Where are you going to place it, Nate?
We live on a corner, so it'll probably be in the corner that you can see as you turn.
Yeah, I think I'm putting it out between the sidewalk and the road, so people driving by can see it, but also people walking down the sidewalk. And we do have a lot of sidewalk traffic on our street, so I think it'll be well received.
Great. So I just wanted to take a minute to just remind folks that this is a program that we're doing this year. We worked a little bit on the wording of this. Originally, we didn't have the, the why we wanted to keep leaves out of the street before it rains. So what we settled on in terms of language was join us in reducing pollution and algae blooms in our local waterways by keeping streets leaf-free. So that really lets people know why we're doing it. It doesn't just say keep the leaves out of the streets for aesthetics or keep the leaves out of the streets for clean waters, but what is it doing for clean waters? So this had that language about algae blooms and pollution. So I thought that was an improvement on the message. And yeah, so we do have these available. I think I have had requests for about 12 signs. We do have 40 signs. So if anyone on this commission or anyone who's tuning in on online would like a sign, please feel free to reach out to me and just give me your address and how many signs you would like, and we will make sure to get that to you.
I think I requested 3. I don't know. I'll re-request them.
Sorry, I might not have put that down in my chart.
That's all right.
So
It's all right.
thank you. Okay, and that's all I had, unless anyone had questions. Oh, sorry, just one more thing. I did want to say that I think this is a really good way of getting the message out, especially during these COVID times when we can't have those events. I really do think signage is pretty effective and something that people read when they're passing by. So I think it's great. Thank you to those who are putting this in front of their homes.
I'll also send this to the tree advisory committee.
Oh, that would be
idea.
great. Thanks, Gabriella.
I think they might be interested in this as well.
Yeah, I love the why. I think it nailed it. And when I saw it today, I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. Because to really inspire people, you have to get into the why. And this explains, exactly what's going on when people keep their leaves. And so I'm going to be diligent about making sure I'm a Nazi on trying to clean up the leaves in the streets.
And thank you to Diane, if she's tuning in, for helping with the language. I reached out to her specifically. I said, Diane, I know you're good with catchphrases, so she helped me come up with that.
Good.
Cool. Yeah. I think a good campaign. We'll see how it works. I'll be working hard at it too. All right. Claudia, you might not be off the hook yet. I know 5C Fitchburg Star articles. I know you were slotted for an article for September. I guess maybe I haven't read September's article. Did you submitted one, right?
I actually had Hannah submit one. So Hannah
right.
was the intern, and she wrote something about leaf-free streets and put in a plug for the signs as well. So we had the plug for the signs in her article, and then we also put it on the city's page as well.
Yeah, that's right. That jogs my memory of it being in the Star. So good. Thank you for doing that. We have Gabriella up for a November article if you're still up for it.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay. Chris, we had you for December potentially, and then Ron for January. And let us know if you guys, Ron, you especially, if you need help starting an idea or how to write it or where to send it. I know Jim Farrell is still going to be the one in charge of editing them. So
Nate, it looks like Ron just had to either log off or got booted off. I'm not sure which.
okay.
And we do still have quorum, so I think it's fine for us to continue if he's having connectivity issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I say we just keep moving. He'll I'm guessing he'll log on, but maybe I'll just follow up with an email on him that he's due for an article for January. So if not, we'll be looking for more articles. I know I'm probably due for one for next year. So again, it can be anything we want. I'm sure there'll be a lot of different ideas out there. So if there's not any other thoughts, we can move on. Let's move on to 5D, community outreach, community update. I know, Chris, you already started that earlier, but I'm sure you have a little bit more to say.
Sure. So we're 1 minute behind schedule, and I'm confident that we can do this in less than 20 minutes. So it's looking like we could have an early release tonight. So with that, obviously we did have our first community outreach meeting in a while, which I mentioned earlier. We will have one again to kind of talk through the ideas that we shared earlier in the meeting about different ideas for potential events we could do during the pandemic times. As far as updates on the two items that we have listed on the agenda, so there's multifamily recycling. I don't think I've really talked too much about this since our newer members have joined, but we did have a kind of a multifamily recycling initiative going where we would go out to apartment complexes and put on just kind of a learning event and give away some reusable bags, but also just do some outreach on what you can recycle and what you can't recycle in Fitchburg. And then we would often get pizza donated for those events. Obviously, we aren't going to be able to have any of those soon. I still am interested in trying to improve that in Fitchburg. So I think, kind of our means for doing that was to try to drum up community outreach, volunteers that wanted to tackle that. And we did have somebody that was on point and going to tackle that at one point. And we actually did have a lead person on it for a couple of years. And then she left the commission and the community outreach subcommittee. And then we had somebody join the community outreach subcommittee and was on for a few months and developed a nice questionnaire. And I thought we were going to be off to the races on it. And then she had, gotten a new position out of state. And so she no longer could lead it. And, ever since that point, which has now been probably a year and a half now, we've been pretty quiet on that front. But it was a front that, we were trying to make some headway on because we do feel like there are issues with, specifically with, what's going into that recycling stream. I know from personally auditing a dumpster when I went out to our last apartment recycling event, I looked in and I saw a pizza box with a half-eaten pizza in the recycling container. And then I saw a whole bunch of clothes in there. And, so it was just a sign like, wow, this outreach is important. And sometimes, as a, I guess as an initiative or I guess incentive for the landlords is they can get fined by folks, like, some of the waste haulers, if they have too much contamination in their recycling stream. And I don't know exactly how they monitor that or how the haulers monitor that, but I know even for a bunch of professionals at an environmental consulting firm, I know that our office has gotten fined on that before, and we feel like we have a pretty good, group of people that should know whether or not if they can recycle something. And so, I have, it is an area that I think we need to continue to try to do outreach to some way, somehow. I'm just not really sure how to do that during the pandemic, and we probably need a little bit more horsepower, internally on our community outreach subcommittee to tackle that one the right way. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
You could focus, since we can't really meet up with people in apartments, you could focus on businesses in Fitchburg. Just send a mailing to them as a reminder with a list of what's recyclable and encourage them to give that to their employees. So that might start a spread. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, we could also reach out to businesses. That's a good idea that we haven't really reached out to that group. Some of the offices are, less than full right now, with a lot of people still working from home. So, potentially that effort will be better received when we are getting back into the offices and
good point.
Producing the waste stream that we once produced there. For now, a lot of people are at home, and so probably our home recycling is if we're going to focus on messaging on outreach, would be how do we recycle better at our homes, because that's where we're spending most of our time right now.
Hey Chris,
So
did that pledge ever go out to multifamily buildings? The pledge form that you had filled out
for who?
For multifamily complexes. The pledge form?
Yeah, I think we came up with a pledge form, and I know
never got sent out.
We didn't implement it because the person that was leading that effort ended up leaving our commission, our subcommittee, and Kim and I were so busy at the time with all of the outreach in the schools that we, it was just a ball that got dropped.
I was just curious.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that was part of the questionnaire, and then we just had a few questions, to just try to, keep it simple and try to keep people on point with at least thinking about it on some level, more than just going through the motions. And so, maybe there's a way that we could circulate that. So if, I guess, we can bring it up at the next, it's been a while since we've discussed it. Maybe we can talk over it at our next community outreach subcommittee meeting and see if there's a way that we can get that back into the cycle of things that we're doing, even if we're still in a pandemic for a little while.
Sure.
And then as far as the schools, obviously, schools are open right now. So school recycling initiatives are kind of tough, but surprisingly, I've spent a ton of time on it since March. And when the schools went out, we've been applying for grants. We're actively, I think I mentioned this last time, that we're working through the Carton Council to get a total of $10,000 in grants for the Madison School District. That would be administered by Sustain Dane. And we would be, kind of part of that effort because we would be doing it at Aldo Leopold School, where we have our volunteer footprint from all the work that we've done in the past. So that would be one of the two schools where we would be implementing a program for collecting more. It'd be kind of like a waste and recycling station to make life easier for the janitors. So instead of having, they're not going to have recycling stations in all the individual classrooms. If we have some strategically placed recycling stations around the schools, then we would be able to, still be able to do some recycling in the schools and keep that program moving forward. I think it has legs after the pandemic as more of the schools are moving towards a model of doing breakfast in the classrooms, where more students are, getting nourished in the morning before they start their classes. And that means more milk cartons being drank in the rooms. And so as part of those grants, we will be part of a national study group. So if there's ideas that are happening in California or Colorado that are suitable here, we can bring those ideas and be leaders on that front here in the Madison area. Likewise, if we have good ideas that can be used by schools in California and Colorado, that's a good thing as well. So the hope is that we'll have kind of a blueprint. So schools that might be struggling with this when in-person classes start back up, that we'll have a way pretty soon after coming out of the gates for schools to be able to deal with that in a smart way. That's all I have.
Cool. Thanks for the update. It's good to hear that you're still keeping on these things, even with not the ability to have much community outreach. So it's good.
A lot of Zoom meetings happening still on it, so keeping it in front. I've been in touch with the MMSD folks, and so the conversation, keeping it going strong.
Was Sharon the one you mentioned who's not with you guys then, or she?
Sharon Hanrahan, she's still with us. I think she's set up pretty. She has a cottage, I think, in upstate New York, and so she's out there right now.
Got it.
So she'll pop in at some point and help us out.
Good.
But it seems to be around when we have events, and obviously we're not having any events, so we haven't seen her for a while. But she's still in the mix.
Good. Cool. All right, you got 10 more minutes if you want.
I don't know. I'm ready to move on so that everybody can be excused early under my watch as the timekeeper. So I would suggest moving on to the next topic.
All right, Gabriella, you're up.
All right, council update. So last night, there was a fantastic presentation led by Claudia about the Lake Barney study and figuring out, really we're getting cost benefit analysis about our different options for where the lake can be. And there's actually 3 different lake levels we're looking at, potentially putting an outlet that can take the water away in a strategic way rather than it just overflowing and moving away in a way we don't necessarily want it to. So we're going to look at a cost benefit analysis and see what the city can do to move towards making that happen. And it was a great presentation. It was last night, Committee of the Whole from September 23rd. So if you're interested in that project, I would encourage you to take a look at that video. And that's on YouTube and also on the Fitchburg website. So that's great information there. And then some of the recent meetings, resolutions that might be relevant. Resolution R 13920 from the August 25th meeting. We talked about we approved the money for the Fish Hatchery Road poles and fixtures, all the new lights that are going up. My understanding is that we're going to make them LED. There was a question about whether or not, like, why didn't we look into solar lights? And my understanding was that it just didn't fit within the budget of the project. It was significantly more expensive, but LED was seen as a good alternative. So that was approved. Phil, do you have anything to add to that, or were you aware that went through?
I don't have anything to add.
And then we looked at R 16120, which actually was a plan commission recommendation to split lots into separate lots. But the reason why was that 2 lots are actually being given to the school in that area for a school forest. So that's going to be developed soon, which sounds like a pretty neat project. R 126.
Sorry, where was that? Where was these lots?
I don't know exactly where they are, but I can find out and send it to you.
Just curious.
I think it's for the new Oregon school, if I'm not mistaken.
That would make sense.
Yeah, but I'd have to double check exactly where it
The
was.
school at Terravesa?
Yeah,
I think so.
could be.
Yeah, I'll get an answer to you for that. And I don't know what the timeline is for actually developing that, but should be very neat. And then R 12620 was the resolution we looked at several meetings ago about a Madison Metro Transit recommitting to our partnership. That went through council, and the vote was 4-4, and the mayor voted no. So the resolution failed. And we're looking at, there is strong desire from the city to look at other transportation company options. So if you're interested in that conversation, I'm happy to direct you to that meeting where we had that final conversation. That was on the August 25th Common Council meeting. But if you want a link, I can send you directly to where it is in the YouTube video. Like I said, I'm on the Tree Advisory Committee. So we met for the first time since I've been on the council back on September 10th. And our conversation dealt with tree diversity. So we talked a little bit about that. We also centered quite a bit on the future tree ordinance. So developing a tree ordinance for the city a tree protection ordinance for the city was one of the original reasons why the Tree Advisory Committee was created. And so that process is finally being moved forward. And we actually have someone on the committee who was studying law that's actually leading the effort to actually draft one that works for the city. And so that's in the works, and that's going to be probably the focus of the committee over the next year through 2021. And I think that'll be a really good thing for the city. And I hope that we can bring whatever final draft of that to RCC as well, since I think tree ordinances are very tied into the type of things that we care about on this committee. And then like I said, we talked about tree diversity. And I guess one of the things I didn't say either, another thing about tree diversity, it's not just the types of trees, but it's also the age of the trees. And Anna, the city forester, has some interesting comments about there's actually kind of like a gap in the ages of trees in the city of Fitchburg. There was a period of time when a lot weren't being planted. And there's a tendency, and this is what the tree ordinance will help alleviate, but there's a tendency for developments when they come through. The trees they save are the oldest and biggest and most beautiful, but those trees typically have a very short lifespan left. So a big, beautiful tree, oak tree, might only live for another 10 or 20 years, whereas a smaller 60-year-old oak tree gets cut down, but that's really the one that would last for the next 100 years. So there's kind of people don't always understand the choice in front of them, and sometimes choose to cut down a tree that might be a better long-term investment for the community. So just having conversations on that front. So excited that maybe we can do a tree diversity event. So that'll be really fun. And then the mayor's proposed budget was released. It is available on the website. If you're interested in participating or finding out a lot more, there's going to be a finance committee meetings next week. There's special meetings that is intended for the department heads to give presentations on their budget proposal specifically. And so that's going to be next week on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, Tuesday, September 29th and Wednesday, September 30th. So if you're interested in watching that, those will be broadcast online. And then, as Mike said earlier, there's going to be 2 public hearings for the budget. One is October 13th. And that if you have like a really something that you're interested in, that's a good one to come to, because the amendments that the alders are drafting are not due until a couple of days later. So if you want something to be proposed, that's the last chance you really have to reach out. Although I would recommend reaching out to your alder if there's something that's important to you. November 10th is the final meeting, and it's the public hearing that leads up to the actual votes. But that at that point, all the amendments are already in, and there's no amendments that we can bring forward on the floor. So that's really more about commenting on what's important to you in terms of changes to the budget before it's accepted. And then last thing, there's a couple of neighborhood meetings coming up that have been organized with staff and alders, specifically related to stormwater. So I think you recall that we had 2 homeowners several meetings ago that came to talk about a significant stormwater issue on Sherrill Drive. And she had a private issue in her backyard, but there's also an issue with stormwater on Sherrill Drive in front of their home. And so we're having a neighborhood meeting this coming Monday, September 28th, with neighbors and Bill Balke to discuss what that looks like and what the future solutions the city's looking at to resolve that or to improve it. And then we're also having another meeting on September 29th during the day at Seminole Glen Park, because there's actually been a lot of significant flooding issues in that park. And there's actually a community group that's popped up, kind of a small community group that's advocating for solutions to kind of save that park, because right now it's dealing with pretty significant flooding. So that'll be on Tuesday, and I'll be attending both of those so I can report back on what that looks like. But if anyone is interested in attending those that's on RCC, I can give that invitation to you, so just let me know. And that's everything, but I'm happy to take questions.
Good job, Gabriella.
Thank you.
Yeah, very thorough. No questions from me.
Great.
For me, nice job.
All right, let's we'll keep it moving to staff update.
Let me unmute myself. All right, so just a couple of things to report in the solid waste world. I do have my intern who has decided to come back. I'm very happy she is back. She's only back once a week for about 4 hours every week, but I am going to have her focus on outreach material for recycling, although today she was actually working on a stormwater sign that that you'll probably be seeing in the upcoming months. I do want her to work on updating the recycling guide, and then also I was thinking it would be helpful to have her work on maybe brochures. You know, what are some common things that people have questions on for whether or not it's recyclable? I know that there have been emails about whether, for example, are padded envelopes recyclable? The answer to that is no. And just getting together maybe a list of common questions that even maybe people who are very good at recycling might have questions on. So there are a couple ideas that we have that she's going to work on putting together outreach material for. I'm really excited to see how that goes. Stormwater, the burn pond retrofit is currently under construction. The filter strip has been constructed, and you can see that vegetation is actually growing on that now, so that looks great. The bioretention basin is scheduled to be seeded and plugged later this week. And then the 4-bay area, we're having vegetated mat put on that. The vegetated mat, if you're not familiar with how that is made, it's actually grown in a nursery, and then depending on how large the root system is, that's when we'll be able to determine that it's ready to be planted in the field. So, so I've been told it's about maybe 3 to 4 weeks before that is ready to put down. So that will be the last step. There has been rough grading that's been completed in the park. We will be doing some additional grading next week to make it look and drain a little bit better. It didn't quite come out the way that we had originally intended. So we're working on getting that fixed now. The substantial completion date for that will be October 15 of this year. So we're still on track for that. As Gabriella mentioned, EOR is working with the city on the Lake Barney study. When I wrote this packet, when I wrote this staff update, the presentation was in the future, but now it's in the past because it was yesterday. And then you can find that on Fact TV's website if you're interested. There's a link to that there. Pumping of the sub-zero pond has commenced, and we're taking weekly groundwater data on that. I have a meeting with the project manager from Strand next week to talk about next steps and timeline to make sure we keep that project moving along. Let's see, next, we had an RFP put out for providing concept solutions and feasibility analysis to address the stormwater issues in the Curry Court and also the Old Indian Trail areas. That was published, and we received, I believe, 5 proposals. And we did 2 interviews, and we selected one of the 2. You should be seeing a resolution come through on awarding that contract. I expect you'll see that in the October meeting. So that's the next step there. Field and Stream has submitted an inventory of all public stormwater facilities along with categorization of existing vegetation. And then this winter, we're going to put together a site-specific vegetation management plan for the entire stormwater utility. My goal is to have that to council next spring. I think a lot of thought will need to go into that. So I think it's going to be more than just what Field and Stream has put together in terms of the inventory. I think other factors will come into play on what level of service different stormwater facilities get in terms of which ones do we really spend a lot of resources making sure that the native vegetation looks nice. One thing that comes to mind is if there's potential for public education. So for example, if the stormwater facility is right next to a park, or if there's a lot of foot traffic near the stormwater facility, I think that would make sense to make those facilities higher prioritization than potentially other facilities in terms of making sure that the vegetation is native, looks good, and then has the potential for public education. So that's upcoming. I see one thing that I forgot to list here is the Fitchburg Road study. The next step there is a public information meeting, and that's going to be on October 14, Wednesday at 6 p.m. I will send out more information on that if anyone here is interested in attending. Any questions for me before I hand it over to Phil? All right. Gabrielle.
Just one quick thing. I was wondering if it'd be possible to come check out the groundwater testing that's happening at the Sub-Zero Kettle.
Sure, I'm doing that tomorrow morning. So if you're free, give me a call.
Yeah, what time?
I was planning to do some. Well, what time are you free? I can do it when you're free.
Let's connect after.
Sounds good. All right, so Phil, I'll hand it over to you then.
Okay. So talked about the East Fire Station Solar Project. I think I covered all those numbers. I can throw in the O'Brien Solar Farm here because it looks like I didn't include that. The MG&E and EDF Renewables solar project at the O'Brien Farm is awaiting final approval of the contracts from the Public Service Commission. There was some hope that the PSC would put that on their agenda for this week, and they didn't do that. So I think we're looking at 2 weeks from now, hoping that in early October, the PSC will look at the contracts for the O'Brien Farm and approve that. As soon as the project is approved, then they can start construction. I believe they've been doing some preparation work on the land already, but haven't actually started doing the installation. So as soon as that is approved, then MG&E will issue a press release and get to work on that. They're still expecting construction to start this fall and then completion next year. Just did a quick calculation of city energy usage with the East Fire Station solar project coming up, looking at the O'Brien array and just everything that's been going on with the pandemic and where's Fitchburg's municipal energy use right now, given all the oddness in terms of city operations and building occupancy and things like that. So we are a couple percent below this point last year in terms of energy purchases from the utilities. Might have expected it to be higher because occupancy is lower, but the water utility is actually up fairly significantly from this time last year. I'm not sure what that's about, and I'd like to check in with Phil Mannion and Tracy Foss and just make sure that my numbers are correct on that. I don't know if that would have to do with more people being at home, and perhaps that's having an impact on overall water usage in the city. But the city hall is down significantly on energy usage, as is the library. We do have the East Fire Station fully operational, and that wasn't the case starting January of 2019. So this is the first year that we have an entire calendar year of 3 fire stations for the city. And so even though the first 2, the kind of public safety building on Lacey Road and the fire station at Marketplace, they have both seen their overall energy intensity drop significantly because of improvements to insulation and lighting efficiency in the solar project. On the second fire station, still having a third station there means that overall our electricity usage for fire overall has increased some. So my best estimate right now is that last year we purchased, I don't have the number right in front of me, I think it was about 4.7 million kWh from the utility. This year I'm expecting we'll purchase about 4.6 million. So it's about 100,000 kWh decrease. So it'll save us several thousand in energy costs. And a decent chunk, but probably most of those savings are due to lower occupancy in our building. So next year, at some point, if we get back to quote unquote normal operations, then that would increase again. But as happens all the time, this is constantly fluctuating back and forth with occupancy, with different services provided to the city. With the new solar install on the East Fire Station, its energy usage should go down from this year to next on a month-to-month basis. So it's just kind of always a moving target. And speaking of that moving target, the next point is our city solar production. We are actually producing more solar from our 2017 project this year than we did last year over the same time period. And it just, I think, largely has to do with the difference in essentially sunny versus cloudy days. Generally, a solar project is going to lose 0.5% to 1.5% of its overall production from year to year. It just kind of very slowly degrades over its 30-year lifetime. So that we're seeing more electricity produced this year than last, I think just has to do with, again, those kind of random year-to-year fluctuations that you can't quite predict. But we do have more solar produced this year than last, so we're at almost 9% of our electricity now is being produced from solar. I'm hoping with the East Fire Station project that pushes us to 10, but given all of these changes from month to month, it just kind of depends on what our usage is that month. We're somewhere in that 9 to 10% range on our electricity being produced by solar that we have as distributed energy, and then over 20%, as I mentioned, is where we should be at by the end of this year, with a significant boost expected next year when we get that 0.5 megawatt capacity from the solar array at the O'Brien Farm. And then the last one is Cycle September. I did send out an invite last month and got a number of participants from city staff, from a couple of committees, from council as well. So at this point, for Madison area entities that signed up with a similar employee size, we're fourth. We're either fourth or fifth for irrespective of size. We're fourth or fifth for government and public entities in the Madison area that signed up. So we've got a number of very avid cyclers who are part of the city of Fitchburg in various capacities. And I guess the last point to that, I generally leave most of the cycling stuff for the bike committee, but there have been a number of bike trail improvements that have been going on over the last couple of years. The Capital City Trail has been undergoing some reconstruction from Dane County parks. We're working on some more multi-use paths along Fish Hatchery Road and the south side of McKee Road. But kind of the most exciting thing right now is that the Badger State Trail was going through some renovation and was also closed across McKee Road because of some of that construction. And there is a new bridge overpass that's going across McKee for the Badger State Trail to keep bikes from having to bike across McKee. So that's pretty exciting. That should open up next Wednesday, and they're talking about how they want to publicize that right now. So if you are a cyclist and you ever get in the Badger State Trail, that'll be opened up next week. So look out for that. I'll stop sharing that now.
My husband biked 45 miles this last weekend, and I told him he needs to add it to our thing because we signed up.
Yeah. If he's on the team.
He is. So
there we go.
yeah. Oh.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for the staff update. Yeah, that bridge is a thing of beauty. I know that was a pretty tough crossing that used to be there, and now it'll help a lot, I'm sure. Good.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of water usage was up in the month of August. So kind of, we're getting the additional sun, so we get more solar from that. But then there's a trade-off that, as a community, we're probably paying more for water usage because more people are watering their lawns.
Mm-hmm.
I was very close to sending something out to the Swan Creek neighborhood, just seeing a lot of watering happening like in the middle of the afternoon, which is kind of, you're going to be your least effective time for that water to really do anything. Also has a potential to bleach out your lawns when you do that. So, the best time, and most of the golf courses do it is early in the morning. If you get it wet late at night, you also have more of a potential for diseases and so forth because it'll be wet over the whole overnight period. So early morning watering, so it's been a while since we've done that. I don't think that I haven't seen watering since like 2012, the last time we really had a dry period, because we've had pretty consistent rain over the summer. So that was the first stretch in a while where I saw extensive watering going on in the neighborhoods.
Well, and I wonder too if there might be some differences just between bathroom fixtures in people's homes versus where they would normally be on work days. If there's a difference in terms of maybe people shower more because, hey, I'm home anyway. And I just wonder if maybe there's a trade-off there that might balance out. But yeah, I suspect there may be a bit of an increase in per person water usage just because of changing habits with people spending more time at home.
Right.
But I don't have any data to back that up. But it was kind of my first guess when I saw that 10% increase. But
wouldn't there be less showers if you're at home all the time?
If you're home all the time, I guess if you're Chris.
Or Shelley.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
More smelly out in Swan Creek. We got wide walking paths, so nobody smells.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I have just the last announcement that we do have a next meeting. Are usually not October, but we do have one in October on October 12th on the new second Monday of the month time. So hopefully everybody can make that one. Let me know if you can't. It seems like there might be some maybe some resolutions on there, but again, let me know. If not, we're 3 minutes early. Anyone has any blue sky things? If not, I thank everybody for showing up tonight. It's been fun. Covered a lot of ground again, and I look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Great.
Bye.
Have a good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.